This is David Bateson, the voice of Agent 47, and you're listening to the Xbox Expansion Pass.
Welcome one, welcome all to episode 85 of the Xbox Expansion Pass, recorded on Sunday, June 6th, 2021. I am your host, Luke Lohr, the InsipidGhost. In this episode, I'm joined by Matt from Ensemble to chat about E3 2021 and the promised land of game announcements on the horizon from Xbox and Bethesda to Ubisoft and WB. Enjoy. Yet another week of gaming is upon us and behind us. Welcome to XEP, discussing all things in the Gamerverse as they pertain to the Xbox ecosystem. And as I am wont to do each and every week, I like to start the show by offering words of kindness to those who have made my gaming week better. And this week, the words of kindness go to my guest, a content creator who consistently puts out the best work, brings the energy, brings the positivity, and talks about all things superhero, WWE, and more. My man, Matt from Assemble. Thank you for joining me, my dude.
Thanks for having me.
I am thrilled that you are here, dude. I am thrilled that you are here. Tell people about your content because it is a joy for me each week.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be here because I legit listen to this show like every week, and it's in my rotation. So this is really, really awesome. For my show, it's I have been on YouTube for just over a year, and content is primarily focused nowadays on a lot of the latest gaming news. So like we're talking about E3, and kind of drill down into the games that I enjoy playing and what's at my fingertips right now. But it's a little bit of everything, covering from Marvel's Avengers, yes, that game, and it is still alive. And there are dozens of us, Luke, that play it. Dozens.
That's right.
That's
you,
right.
me, and at least a few others.
4 to 5 other people still play it. And then some of the WWE 2K news that's coming out and the latest on that game, because I'm just a huge wrestling fan at heart. So I always love to cover that. And a lot of the stuff that's just coming out, whether it's going to be any of the E3 news, predictions, things like that. Even more recently, like after this show, I'm actually going to be doing one on Halo Infinite and doing a little predictions on that side. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything, and I'm having a blast doing it and talking to the community and being with everybody and interacting with like you and everyone else in the community online. It's really been awesome.
Your show's great. As somebody who is all about superheroes and stuff like that, and the nerdiness, it's awesome to jump up there and check out a Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode review, or the Justice League review, things like that, talking about different gaming aspects from Ratchet and Clank to Halo Infinite. It's awesome, man, and so well produced. And you've only been doing it for a year.
Yeah, self-taught too, my friend.
Oh man.
So learn as I go. But yeah, I watch a lot of, obviously I watch a lot of content online, stuff that I enjoy, and I enjoy, variety of different creators and their podcasts, and I love even things like tech reviews and looking at the production quality. And I just wanted to take the things that I enjoy and try to put my flavor and spin on it. And I want to make sure that I'm trying my best to put out the best quality content that I can. Hopefully I can hit the facts and the figures and the information, and have a good conversation with everybody that's watching or listening. But yeah, I've just been, since day one, I'm like, I just want to make sure that I'm putting out the best quality I can, and constantly just try to push. Because if it takes me 3 hours to put out a 6-minute video, at least 1 to 2 people are gonna watch it, and that's awesome, and that's kind of enough for me. So hopefully people enjoy.
And I'm sure they do, man. And I will take a little bit of personal pride in saying I was among your first 100 followers, and
Yes,
and you're now north of 2,000. That's incredible, man. I'm so proud of you. Happy for you. It is awesome to see you grow. And don't forget us little guys. Once you get up there, man.
I am still very tiny. Well, likewise, sir. I caught you. All this is thanks to Snowbike Mike, because you and I connected through the Twitch and enjoyed your content there, and then discovered this show, and I pat you on the back because the show is fantastic. It gets into a lot of the, I guess, the nitty gritty that I enjoy listening to. I love the opinions and people's takes on certain things, but I love when you're coming in with like just the quality and the depth of material and news coverage, and yeah, just your insights and everything, and the interviews. Those are fantastic.
Thanks, man. And it's kind of cool to see that another content creator connected us. Snowbike Mike, obviously exploding with popularity.
It's his
I'm
fault.
sure he's he's too good. He's too good. But it's neat to see how the small gaming community can be so connected and still reach large audiences. I think that's just one of the coolest things about our medium for sure. All right, man. Let's get into some gaming news. Plenty to talk about. We are on the eve of E3 week. Oh, my goodness. I am thrilled by how coverage is being handled in 2021. I think, really excited at the time in 2020 with how we would have a long process of releases, a lot of gaming news over a couple months' time. And at the time, I was thrilled by that. Ooh, I was exhausted and burned out by the end of it for sure. So I am so glad that Summer Game Fest and E3, which I tend to use synonymously as just knowing it as E3 for this coming week. I just call it E3 week. But Summer Game Fest as well included in here. We've got the schedule in front of us. And while we won't go through everything, there's a lot to break down and just what we may be able to expect, what we're looking forward to. Officially, I believe we're looking at things starting around June 12th with Ubisoft and Gearbox. For the life of me, Matt, I have no idea why Gearbox would have a show.
Yeah, that's a puzzling one. Maybe they should be shoving it in with another expo.
Maybe they should. Take-Two is on June 14th. Why not just throw that in there, you know?
Yeah, a little bit.
So it goes. But Ubisoft, of course, getting us started this year. EA Play in July, so not starting off E3. There's a little bit of a change there for sure. But Ubisoft, lots of things they could announce, from Splinter Cell to Ghost Recon as our pie in the sky stuff, all the way down to what you're likely to see with more of Far Cry 6. When you look at the Ubisoft conference, what they've got on their slate, what we know and don't know, what comes to your mind?
I'm interested to see what. So one of my bigger predictions or pie in the sky pieces is Ubisoft goes through their entire conference. We get a Rainbow Six Quarantine rebranding.
Of course, absolutely.
Scratch that, and we get some gameplay coverage, as well as, like, you know, they'll do the multiplayer co-op where everyone sounds amazing and they're being super serious about it. I'm excited to see what that game looks like. I hope it doesn't trip over what the Division has created and built. I also want to see more from the Division, because I think that's a world that they can definitely build upon. They have, but they could expand even further. I'm just interested to see what they end up doing with Quarantine. On top of that, I'd really love to know what Ubisoft is going to do with any type of work with Xbox, and see if we can get Ubisoft Plus in there with Xbox and Game Pass. So I think that one of the biggest things that I'd be excited for, and it is one of my pie in the sky dreams, is that either at the Ubisoft Forward event, we are going to have them announce it, but I would lean on Xbox, and we'll go into this in a little bit, but I would love to see the partnership of Ubisoft Plus on Xbox Game Pass. I don't think Ubi would take that front. I think Xbox would be likely to do it, but specifically on the gaming side, Watchdogs Legion, their new they have the zombie expansion coming.
So in my mind, I want to call it Legion of the Dead, and I think it's going to PC. But talk to me about that.
I do want to see what that is all about. I'm primarily on my Xbox itself. Yeah, they are in beta test right now for that on the PC side. I'm curious to see what that is, because Watch Dogs Legion is a game that I skipped out on, and I've been so tempted to pick it up like almost every month, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab it. It just scares me with how daunting another open world UB game is.
Sure.
But that is one with the zombies that I'd be interested to see. And the last one is, obviously, they're going to show off like The Crew 2. And I always enjoy racing games, mostly Forza on the Xbox side. But The Crew 2, if they can try to nail that kind of open world, live, living, breathing world where you can actually swap out of different vehicles, that one I'd be interested in too. There's a lot to love. And I love how Ubisoft, the only thing that turns me off sometimes is just if their titles tend to lean kind of too similar, from Watchdogs to The Division to possibly even Rainbow Six Quarantine, what that would be. But the other one is just Splinter Cell. Let's
Do
go.
you mean the Crew 3?
I'm sorry. Yes, the Crew 3.
Okay. Well, I was making sure there wasn't like an expansion that I missed or anything in that particular front
No.
there. I am curious to know if they're going to be pulling, the Crew 3 out. I wondered just how successful the Crew 2 was, because I also love Forza, but next to Forza Horizon, the Crew fell by the wayside.
Totally. 100%.
You know?
What about you?
Man, you've got a lot. Oh, you've got a lot to break down in those thoughts. Addressing Watchdogs Legion, that game got infinitely better as it was released. Like many of the games that have released in the last few years, its launch state is very different than its current state. And I really like Watchdogs Legion. That was among my favorite games of 2020. Certainly a great download. If you can snag it now on sale, you will be well worth your time if you snag it for 30, 40 bucks. A lot of content there. They're doing a lot of fan servicey things, as Ubisoft is known to do. From Aiden Pierce to different types of expansions that they bring to their games. I'm really excited for what Watchdogs Legion could bring to the table. I'm very excited for Aiden Pierce to return. I was pleasantly surprised with the simplicity of its complex open world, and I realize that might sound a little bit like an oxymoron, but really and truly, it was very manageable, and there was a lot of ways to tackle problems, and I played the game like a spy game. Others may have played it like a hacking game. Others may have played it like a shooter, and the game allows you to do that. So if you are nervous about that and you see it on sale, I would say give it a go for sure. I really liked Legion.
That does have me excited because, like I said, the Ubisoft games are, for me, they're always the titles I'm like, I want them. I want to try all of them, but I get overwhelmed sometimes by how large it is, and that there is some overlap, obviously, of like, go here, go fetch all of these side quests and talk to guy X, and then go back to your location or drive to ABC. And it throws me off. And the Watch Dogs games, like Watch Dogs 1 had its flaws. I really enjoyed 2. And yeah, Legion, if you're telling me that it is a more manageable game in terms of the world, and yeah, I can play it how I want to play it, then yeah, I think I will pick it up, because for like it is right now, it's with E3 coming, it's like $30 and get the whole thing, and to see if they're going to expand on the world. So I don't know, what do you think that they're going to do with Watch Dogs Legion? Do you think it's going to be pushing just the zombie mode expansion on PC, or do you think that they're going to be bringing more with that game?
Well, they have the Aiden Pierce DLC, which will tie the first and third games together. They had references to the second game that I didn't play much myself. I think bringing the zombie elements to console will be the next priority, and from there they'll probably evaluate what it is they want to do. They did themselves a disservice, and I mean Ubisoft as a whole, when they released Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Immortals all next to each other.
Yeah.
And spreading that out would have been, I think, a far wiser choice. Having one of those 3 games launch this February would have been just incredible. And maybe that was their plan with Far Cry 6. It was a bad plan. Far Cry 6 should always have been this holiday, because, goodness, that gameplay looks gorgeous and ready to go. For Watch Dogs, I think we know the content map, and I doubt they go beyond the zombie expansion and the Aiden Pierce stuff. I'm curious to know what else they'll show, because they're very good at bringing live service elements to their games. I know we're going to see, goodness, the spiritual sequel to Steep, which the name embarrassingly escapes me right now.
Oh shoot, yeah,
Riders Republic.
Okay, yeah,
That's what it is. Goodness gracious. Riders Republic, and I'm just wondering what types of surprises they may have in store. Everybody wants Splinter Cell at this point, and it's becoming something where we're all going to say it, and be disappointed once we get it, because it won't live up to an expectation. But I think at some point they've got to get Sam Fisher out of the mobile space and into a proper
Agreed.
AAA experience, particularly because the voice actor is aging, to say the least. I mean, they had him on Inside Xbox last year, I believe, and he didn't look spry. So let's make it happen if we're going to make it happen. Beyond that, I'm hopeful for a Ghost Recon game, and I don't mean one like Breakpoint. I mean Advanced Warfighter-esque, Future Soldier-esque. That would be lovely to see. But then beyond that, I think you get a service type announcement where you see them partnering with Game Pass or doing something where their games regularly feature in Game Pass. Some people, Matt, have floated the idea of exclusivity. Games are going to come day and date to Game Pass every time exclusive. That's ludicrous. Ubisoft has a reputation of releasing games on every platform from the Wii U day one to all these other places. So I don't see that happening.
I don't either. I just see that so Splinter Cell would be, I'm craving for that. I would like a proper Sam Fisher Splinter Cell game ready to go in a year to 2 years from now. Hopefully they would have something to announce and to be able to show off to some degree. I would then love Xbox, like I said earlier, Xbox to turn around when it is their time on their showcase to say Ubisoft Plus is available on Game Pass, and we are bringing you the Splinter Cell collection. After Ubisoft has had their time to shine and showcase that, just to get fans excited for that game and bring them back into that world. I can see something like that, and I agree with you. I don't think that Ubi would go and say, okay, we're day and date on Game Pass. It's going to be on everything. It has to be.
Well, the next day, Sunday, June 13th, that is my day. Now, I'm telling you, if there was ever an
you.
that is right. I mean, I and many content creators will be spitting out content on the day live, and then we'll do reactions. For any listener here, I'll be on the Twitch stream with Mr. Badbit. We'll be reacting live to the Xbox conference, and then that night, Miles Dompierre will be joining me for XEP. Matt, this day was built for Luke Lohr. We're getting Xbox Bethesda news. We're getting WB Games news, which makes me think Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad. Yes. And then we're getting Avengers news, which bring all your hate, listeners. Bring all your hate. The 6 or 7 of us are having a blast in that game, and it's way better than it was when it launched. That's for sure. I'm curious to see what
I kind of have a vision of, and listeners, go through this with me. You imagine that it's the Xbox conference, and Luke is sitting on his couch or his chair, and he's holding the Master Chief helmet, just cradling it in his arms, and he's rocking back and forth in anticipation and nerves as well as what he's going to see.
That sounds absolutely correct. I lost it when I saw Halo Infinite gameplay last time. For all the criticisms, I thought the game looked like a great time. Loved the grapple hook, loved the tone that it was trying to strike there. Of course, there were performance issues that were exhaustingly nitpicked, which, for God's sakes, everybody, we need to stop zooming in and examining pixels of games. I saw people criticizing Horizon Forbidden West, what is one of the most beautiful trailers of all time. People were mad about something in that. We got to get away from that for sure. But I'll tell you what, man, a 90-minute Xbox conference. We already know that Perfect Dark exists. We already know that there are games in development for like Starfield. We know Halo Infinite will be there. But the bigger question marks are, what are we going to see from Compulsion? Is Coalition going to announce anything? What else from these studios is going to happen? Xbox-wise, for that 90-minute Bethesda showcase with Xbox, what is it you're looking forward to off the top of your head?
Couple of things. I made some notes here. One, 90 minutes is an amazing amount of time. It goes fast, but it allows them to do so much. From the Xbox side to the Bethesda side, I think that they're going to beat everyone over the head in a good way of Game Pass. Mm-hmm. This is their time that they have built up enough equity and enough with their audience that people are becoming much more aware. And I say a larger audience, your casual fans, families, things like that, to get them more and more aware of Game Pass and the value of Game Pass. Mm-hmm. So I think that in every game, obviously you're going to see that day and date on Game Pass, coming to Game Pass, etc. The things that excite me from the Microsoft side are some of its quality of life, to see what new titles they might be bringing into Game Pass. I think we'll get some big sizzle reel of everything from EA Play built into Game Pass Ultimate to the features and the updates they've done, just to showcase it a little bit more. I'd like to see on the Game Pass side that they actually they announce and reveal more of a family plan for the subscription service, because I think that's one thing that's lacking if they're trying to tackle into kind of the family friendly market. Right. They have some titles on their store, but I'd like to see them release more on the Game Pass side. And I'm talking for a much younger audience, because we have one account. And if you're a family with multiple kids and everyone's got a box or their PC, and they're touting Game Pass, I think that it's a perfect time to come out and say, like Apple, where you go, hey, here's your family plan. And it's $30-$40 a month for Game Pass Ultimate Family. And you're going to, you'll get 5 accounts. And then the parents can manage the whole thing, because Xbox is also very much touting, and they've pushed out marketing campaigns too, even recently, of like, here are all the family tools that we've launched on the Game Pass app for security and privacy and downloading games, etc. So that's a big piece of what they like to do, at least on the Game Pass side. That's what I'd like to see. When it comes to the overall conference, Gotham Knights, huge. We'll talk about that probably a little bit more. Halo, I think that I wanted to ask you, do you think that they would lead with Halo, or do you think that they are going to close things for the conference with Halo?
I think, I mean, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Ask me at a different time, I'll give you a different answer. But in my mind, the best thing to do is to open with Halo and reintroduce that game properly. I think a lot of people have a lot of good and bad vibes, deservedly so, for several reasons, about Halo Infinite, and they now need to show everyone why this game was delayed a year. What was the reason? Rumor mill will do what it does, but in my mind, they need 2 introductions. They need to introduce multiplayer, they need to introduce single player. Show people a bit more single player gameplay so that you don't see the trees popping in, a bit more of a refined experience, and then highlight that multiplayer. That multiplayer is going to be free to play. That's going to be the draw for a lot of people. Not everybody's a lore buff like myself, pun intended. And I am very much looking forward to finding out how they go about reintroducing this. Will it launch the show? I think it should. And then from there, they escalate and de-escalate accordingly throughout the show. Because you want an ebb and flow. You can't be on the rise the entire 90 minutes. That's too much. It's just too much. And trying to outdo yourself every 2 seconds is difficult.
And you can't do a Halo and Starfield back-to-back. You've got to kind of bookend those titles, I think, one way or the other. I agree with you. I think that you need to really recapture fans and bring in new fans to the platform. If they're looking at Halo specifically, here is the campaign piece, whatever that looks like. If it's embedded in the multiplayer, I don't know. Part of me feels that Halo Infinite is not going to be necessarily a tried and true Halo campaign experience that we've known. I feel that it will be brought into the multiplayer in some capacity, where it is going to be going from, like, you can just go and travel and go to this world, to this, and all of that.
You mean like Destiny? Is Destiny?
Yeah, and doing more of that approach, but beefed up with Halo. I think that I agree with you. I think the multiplayer is massive, and they need to explain to you and show you why this is the reason why you need to come over to Xbox for this multiplayer experience, that we're expanding this world, that you have all this freedom. Show off your weapons, show off the world itself. But like you said, it's like, I don't need you panning across the trees. I need real gameplay and that hard sell. Why this is the biggest title coming into the fall, because I felt that Xbox has done so much over the last 2 years, let's say, of building Game Pass and launching the console and building all these titles and the acquisition with Bethesda and all of this stuff, leading to now, where they were supposed to have Halo last year and it wasn't ready. It's on my Series X box. Like, Master Chief is standing there. He was ready to go in their mind, and marketing mind. I feel that now you have to really sell Halo, and that starts the domino effect of Xbox. Because like you, I am the most excited about Xbox for this year because of what it will mean 2-3 years down the road. And I think that, Halo, they want everyone out of their way. This is the main game that will keep players coming back for years, and it will then snowball into, like, here's the next game from Xbox, and the next, and you get those Bethesda titles, and you get Starfield and all of that.
One thing I absolutely want to see is at the end of their show, after they've taken us through their 90 minutes of games, where I'm sure we'll see more about, the Ascent and some of the games that are coming out this year, Scorn, and the smaller games. After that, when everything is said and done, after Starfield, what I would like is a 3 to 5 second clip of just names popping up on the screen that remind gamers, Xbox gamers specifically, what they get for being in the ecosystem. They remind people what they've already announced. it pops up Fable, Perfect Dark, Elder Scrolls, Starfield, Outer Worlds, Avowed, Grounded, Forza, and Indiana Jones. And it just
Mhm.
keeps going and shows everybody what the future of Xbox is set to bring. I think that would be a very wise choice for them to do, because over the past year and a half to 2 years, they have announced quite a few games that people were asking for. Fable and uh, oh my gosh, Fable and Perfect Dark being at the top of my mind. The problem is they're so sparsed out that people tend to forget just how much goodness is set to come.
Yep.
And it is a great Sony tactic, something they did very well. I'm thinking back to the 2016 E3, where Sony promised the world and none of it was coming out soon. They eventually delivered on all those
But it's
promises.
the 3 year, 4 years away of like, this is
Right.
what we're gonna get, and you're like, whew, okay, it looks good, but we're not getting anything now.
Right. And Microsoft needs to take a page from that book, not copy the playbook, because they do need to talk about why you should get one now. Strike while the iron's hot. Don't let it rest just on Halo, but promise people what they're getting into the future 2, 3, 4 years from now, because Game Pass is their mechanism to deliver a number of experiences across a number of places. This summer, we're looking at Flight Simulator and a few other smaller experiences in the Ascent, but show people what you're doing long term, big and small.
Agreed. And I think you're kicking that off with Halo, but it is looking at that to then maybe I mean, Starfield, yes, Doom title coming down the road. Forza, I want to see. I want to see what they're going to do with that. And like you said, I want that end of the conference to go, that sizzle reel and all of those tiles of boom, 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 boom. Here are
Mm-hmm.
the 15, 20 titles exclusive to Game Pass, on top of the library, on top of what we have in EA Play, on top of just everything. And you're going,
Mm-hmm.
my goodness, there are so many games, and hopefully not all of it is going to be, and you can experience this in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I feel, as a fan of Xbox and the ecosystem, I need those first party titles,
Mm-hmm.
the big ones. I'm looking for Halo and Forza and Starfield and those types of games that it's all the first party stuff to really be able to showcase and be like, hey, this is why come over to Xbox. However, I do think that we would see Phil Spencer on stage, like you said, talking about the future of Xbox, or
Certainly.
more to the point, I think he'll be saying, here's the future of Game Pass.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Could not agree more. And it's to me that it's awesome that we get this 90-minute show, which is probably going to be a healthy mix of Bethesda and Xbox Game Studios, though that umbrella extends around all of them now, and really helping us understand what their vision is for having Bethesda along with them, because they are very smart and wise to keep the Bethesda name in everything
Yep.
For probably the foreseeable future, without a doubt. After that 90-minute showcase where we'll see games big and small, then you've got Square Enix Presents, which most Square Enix titles at this point are PlayStation exclusive. PlayStation is doing a very good job at tying up content there. Babylon's Fall comes to mind, but Square Enix has a few other things that are multi-platform: Life is Strange, Outriders, and the one that I think you and I are probably most poised to talk about, the War for Wakanda expansion for Marvel's Avengers, which a lot of people may roll their eyes, and understandably so, but this is potentially their Taken King. This is something that they are looking to help relaunch the game. There have been a number of quality of life improvements for that
Yep.
title. I
Yep.
mean, the game looks great on Series S and X. It plays far better than it once did. There's a lot more to do in the game, but I think a lot of the gameplay criticisms are still there, and I will certainly not dissuade anybody from those criticisms. Except to say that War for Wakanda offers some promising content of both Black Panther and another hero too, along with some good villain things there. I'm curious how this Square Enix Presents showcase decides to focus content. When you look at the slate, is it War for Wakanda that's bringing you in? Is it Life is Strange? Do you care about Outriders? What else is on your mind?
Outriders, it's interesting. Outriders, I fell off of very quickly. I enjoyed it. I
Mm-hmm.
thought, like most of us said, the story element, I do not care. It was a put on a podcast and play this game. So I feel like it had its moment, grabbed a huge amount of audience,
Mm-hmm.
especially with it being day and date in Game Pass. That really elevated that game. It's great. I don't have much desire to go back to that title right now, only because I feel like I'm getting pulled into different directions and things I'm more excited for, like even Ratchet and Clank coming out soon.
Sure.
So I'm kind of moved on from it, which is unfortunate for a game like that. But again, I think that title got way more success because of the help of Game Pass and the exposure, and that it was a good game. The mechanics were there, and it's a solid game, so it got more eyeballs. I think they'll showcase more of a expansion DLC content, some more quality of life improvements. The biggest thing, if you're looking at the Marvel's Avengers side, because I cover this almost weekly at this point, trying to dissect it. The big takeaway I have for the War for Wakanda is that it is touted as an expansion. It is not a DLC. We've had DLC. We've had Kate Bishop DLC. And we've had the Hawkeye DLC. The War for Wakanda is an expansion. My only hope, because it could be just a bigger DLC, right? It could just be a couple hours longer. I hope not. But I feel that because they've focused on this for so long, we got a tiny little teaser trailer months ago. I'm hopeful that this is an actual tried and true expansion, a move into 2.0. What I mean is that we are getting those, yes, we've had those quality of life pieces. We have seen this game get updated month after month, and even the community managers and people, when they do their weekly posts on Twitch and on the forums, they even say, hey, we're not going to get a giant patch to redo the gear. You're going to get smaller bite-sized patch updates that are going to rework this game. And it is in a different state than when it launched. We're not doing a minute and a half elevator rides.
No.
Now I'm on my PS5 and it's seconds. It's great in that regard. It's hollow in terms of my replayability and content now that I've maxed my character, but I hope that War for Wakanda, it will showcase Black Panther in a great way. I hope that it's a lush, vibrant, bright environment. We get new enemy types, and it kickstarts them into the next kind of chapter for this game. I hope. But I can also see it, Luke, where they go and I get 3 minutes of this title with a little bit of gameplay put in there. They're going to highlight a few key pieces of what the War for Wakanda will bring us. But then it's going to be, okay, so when I finish that, now what?
Yep.
And so I am also very nervous that, yeah, it's going to be a bigger DLC. But I'm staying positive. I think it's going to be an expansion, and we get into the next phase of this because they still have Spider-Man looming at some point in their lives. And whether that comes or doesn't, I think it will. But I think they're going to look at Wakanda and see how it takes and how many more fans they can bring back to this game. But they really need to sell this thing as to why you need to come back into this world.
Certainly. No AAA game was released and then suffered the effects of COVID and pandemic and work before our eyes than Avengers. Now, I'm sure other games did, but they were more privately. Like, we watched Avengers launch, and then all the things that were set to be a month or 2 months, 3 months out got pushed and pushed because it takes so long to download work builds, and their pipeline was not set up for it. So I'm hopeful that they're able to recover. I know that team is exhausted because they get a lot of negativity, understandably in some cases, not in others. And I hope they have a good showing for sure. But it is that presentation, it is the Xbox presentation, and then wherever WB slots in, because Gotham Knights is, oh my, Arkham Knight is my favorite game of last generation. Again, not the best, but my favorite. I absolutely adore the Arkham series. I want so badly to see what Gotham Knights has to offer, and I feel like they should be throwing me a little love by doing an Arkham Origins remaster for this holiday, but whatever.
Yes, please.
I could not be more excited to see where Arkham Knights has gone in the time since we last saw it, because it looked fairly complete, at least in the slice that we saw. What is it you think we're going to see? Villains? Are you thinking we're going to find out who the main villains truly are in this game?
I think it would be, no, because I think they go with what the other Arkham games have done, where there is a twist. And Arkham Origins
really
did
Jason
this.
Todd again?
Yes. I think they do, almost like Arkham Origins, right? We had a twist right there where you thought it was one and then goes the other way. And I love it for that. So no, I don't think that they show their hand necessarily. I think they would show off villains because we have multiple characters that seemingly I can toggle between, or I'm going to be switching throughout the game, or teaming up. It just looks so good. Look, I'm just so excited for it. But I think that they would want to showcase some of the villains. You need a recognizable name in the Batman lore to throw on the screen that people can identify. You don't want to go with a villain that is lesser known. You can sprinkle them in. So I do think that we would get some sort of villain reveal. Maybe it's like the first one that you take on. Maybe it's Two-Face or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need Joker. I need a break. We've had that through the Arkham trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And as amazing as it is, if it's not, well, I shouldn't say if it's not Mark Hamill, because we've had other voice actors do a really good job with the Joker. But I just feel the character needs a break. You need to sunset him for a bit so people can get more excited and be able to build up other villains. The world itself, I agree. We've had over a year of a year of the delay. I need to see a little bit more. We saw that gameplay originally, right? And it looked good. I was ready to play that thing the next week. I'm sure it needed a lot more work on their end, but I was excited to get going to see what they could do from a multiplayer standpoint, where I can do co-op, I can switch between characters. I hope we get some villains. I hope that we get a little bit more of the story itself. We saw that gameplay reveal, and it was fantastic. Now, talk to me about the story that I'm going to be getting in this. And yeah, maybe a little bit on the villain side. But to your earlier point of a remaster, I also hope that from the WB side and Xbox, they turn around. And I've been poking Phil Spencer online on Twitter, not that he cares. I've been poking Xbox team, not that they care. But every couple of weeks, I'm like, hey, where's my Arkham trilogy in the new updates for Series X? Can I get that nice little XS mark, please, on my console? Because I want that trilogy. I want Arkham Origin. I want all of those Batman games re-released or pushed out again on Game Pass after the E3 weekend. Talk about Gotham Knights, hype that game up. Now re-release that whole trilogy on Game Pass with all of the next-gen updates. Give me that 60 FPS. Give me the 4K. Give me the ray tracing. Bring me back into that world so I can get excited for that game to come out maybe in the fall. What do you think?
All what you're saying sounds good. I just don't know what's going to happen, and I wonder what the Discover acquisition of WB means. I wonder how the potential shopping around of W games factors into that, or future current releases. We know that Gotham Knights has a marketing deal with PlayStation, which in my mind was a missed opportunity for Xbox. I think they should have shelled out for that one, because you don't want gamers associating both Batman and Spider-Man with the PlayStation universe.
I agree.
I think, as I've said many times on this show, I don't like when major properties like that that should belong to everybody are exclusive. I wouldn't want them exclusive to Xbox either. I would like them everywhere. That said, I think we need to remind people that this is not an Arkhamverse game, though the gameplay looks to be suggestive of that, meaning that they can go anywhere they like with the story. The Arkham quadrilogy, trilogy, depending on your perspective there, is going to be extended into the Suicide Squad universe, which is all the more weird. I've got to feel like Batman's helping the Suicide Squad take down an evil Superman in that universe. I feel like that's got to be it. I think that's what Suicide Squad's premise is. But with Gotham Knights, I mean, I want to see how they're going to be handling co-op combat, how they're going to be handling crossplay, if at all. And I would extend that same thing to Avengers. I want to know how they're handling crossplay. There's a lot to break down there. What I hope doesn't happen is that one platform gets more content than the other. That's for sure.
Same. And I agree with you that I don't like when a property like a Spider-Man or Batman is associated with it's on PlayStation. Spider-Man, PlayStation, I mean, good for them, but it's not great for gamers.
Right.
That may not be able to take advantage of that or play on that console. And same thing with Batman. However, I think that if you were Xbox, if you were Microsoft, I do look at it as a missed opportunity where they should have, like you said, they should have dished out more coin to be able to get a little bit more mind share of Batman on Xbox. Doesn't mean it's exclusive. Let's just, like I said, put that quadrilogy, put that on, make it recognizable on Xbox.
Certainly.
That will help for them, for Microsoft, to be able to boost that more. And like you said, with Gotham Knights, I want to see how each character is going to play and feel different than each other. Show me the weapons, the gadgets. How are they moving? How is their combat? But how is it different from each other? Not just like, oh, they got one extra move or they got two extra gadgets. I really hope that they do feel a lot different from each other.
Absolutely. Nightwing should not feel like Batgirl, nor Jason Todd, nor anybody else. It'll be very I'm excited for those gameplay perspectives and options there. But of course, Gotham Knight's not likely to be the only thing there. We'll probably see Back for Blood. We may see more coming from them and 24 Entertainment. I just want to know what WB's plans are going forward and how they do handle this merger, this acquisition. If I can know what's in the short term, I'll be a bit more comfortable with how they handle the long term, to say the least. We have later on in that same June 13th day, the PC Gaming and Future Games Show showcase, which I'm sure we won't cover too much there, but you have to expect you'll see kind of more from Ubisoft and WB and Square Enix kind of just popping up into those other shows.
Yep.
June 14th, that Monday, that's the Take-Two and Capcom showcases, along with some indie stuff as well. Take-Two, an interesting one. We've heard about this Bully reboot. Capcom, people are talking about Dino Crisis and Dragon's Dogma, maybe Street Fighter 6. I have no clue really what's to offer here. I know that with Take-Two, I'll probably see Grand Theft Auto 5 again. And I do not care, but I am so happy for those of you that do. Really, truly, like I mean that sincerely. Happy for those of you that care. I'm tired of Grand Theft Auto 5.
Are you?
Yes.
Yeah, I am too. I love it. I love that people love that game. Same thing. Like, I'll hop into it when we got some updates, but yeah, I don't need much more than that. The Capcom one, similar. I love fighting games to a degree, but I'm very casual with it. And yeah, new Street Fighter, sure. Like, let's do it. But I don't. For me, for the games I'm playing, yeah, Capcom isn't blowing my mind with anything huge right now. New Street Fighter, great. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Capcom nailed it with Resident Evil 8. I really loved Village. Really did. We know Resident Evil 4 Remake. Well, we don't know. Let me rephrase that. We have strong inclinations that Resident Evil 4 Remake is on the way in some way, shape, or form. And I'm glad if we find out more. That's awesome. I think maybe they show some new content for Village that's coming out, or things they've got in the pipeline and roadmaps. Because at this point, studios have been very steadfast now into their rhythms for pandemic production. And so they should have more accurate roadmaps than they would have a year ago. Like, they should know what they're capable of doing, not capable of doing. I'm curious to know what types of expansions will happen. Capcom is just this weird question mark. They've got IP that I care about. They've not done much with any of them outside of Resident Evil in the past few years. Again, Street Fighter 6 is something I would love to see happen, provided it's not exclusive to anyone. I think that really hurt Street Fighter 5. Moreover, I want to know, Dragon's Dogma, Dino Crisis, are these games coming back? People always pie in the sky it. Will we see anything from that this year? Really, this entire showcase, this year's E3, is going to show us what we can look forward to in this now current gen. What is your PlayStation 5? What is your Xbox Series S or X going to bring you experience-wise? Because last year it was a lot of question marks, right? Pandemic aside, launch games are not nearly the same as what you get 2-3 years out from a console. Moreover, we're seeing a lot of cross-gen stuff, and I could care less about the believe in generations argument from Sony or anything else. I love that more people get to play more games, and I just want to see what we're doing with these now current-gen consoles.
And I wanted to ask you, do you feel that with the pandemic not over by any means, but we're seeing improvements and some sense of normalcy in different countries, do you feel that the production on and development on certain games, whether it is Capcom or anybody else, do you think that if they've kind of planned a, let's say, Dino Crisis during kind of COVID era, where, well, we got to do a lot of remote work, we have a longer roadmap for this game because we just don't know where we're going to be, if things start to normalize a little bit more and people can physically go back to work and all of that, do you think that we see a bunch of titles get kind of pushed up, or do you think that they would almost look at it as an opportunity to say, hey, we can let these games breathe, like we can develop a little bit longer, even if we're back in? What do you think?
I think that in most cases, it'll be the latter, where they'll take their time and put things out at a later date and allow themselves the freedom to make the best quality product. I think Halo Infinite's reveal, I think Cyberpunk's release, Marvel's Avengers release have really showed people that releasing a game that is not content complete or that is bug ridden is bad news bears. It does more to hurt your brand than make your fiscal year in the short term. I think investors are starting to learn that lesson as well. And while we do exist now in an age where you can release a broken game and then fix it over time, and we've got great examples of that happening, Sea of Thieves, Destinies 1 and 2, there's a lot to be said for taking your time and releasing a better product that'll have longer legs going forward. So I think the pandemic is a built-in, I don't know if the excuse is the right word, and I don't mean to sound arbitrary when I say it, but it's a built-in excuse to take your time where you might need it. We're seeing major games like Halo Infinite and God of War get delayed. Gotham Knights got delayed, and they should, like take your time. God of War is a masterpiece. It's the best game ever made in my mind. It was delayed multiple times. Arkham Knight is my favorite game of last gen. That was delayed multiple times. That's okay. I think studios should be forgiven for delaying things. And really and truly, Matt, more and more on my timeline, I see forgiveness for delaying games. So my hope is that we continue to allow that. And I think games will get better post-pandemic for a lot of reasons. But there were a lot of lessons learned around this console's launch and the recent game launches of the past year.
Yeah, and I think Cyberpunk is one of those giant examples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Years of development, still not ready, still being worked on to this day, and trying to recapture that market share and the goodwill and the trust, ultimately, of players across platforms.
Mm-hmm.
And fans, I think, in large part, are much more willing to say, yeah, take your time. You need to delay a game? No problem. I want the better product. If it's not ready, it's not ready. Versus rushing it out and then asking for, hey, please trust us. Yeah, I know you bought it. Please trust us. I only hesitate and I only worry that if it's a Game Pass title or comes to Game Pass, that some developers could think of, I know nobody wants to put out a bad product. It's no one's intention. However, if a game is identified as needing more development, need more time, but we got to hit these release dates, they put it out, it's on Game Pass, and then they can start patching and duct tape the thing. My only worry there is that some developers look at it and say, well, we can put this out. It's going to be on Game Pass. We'll get huge spikes in our numbers, and we can always fix it as we go. I think that'll probably always be there to some degree.
Sure.
Because games are they're online now. It's not the final product anymore to say that,
and
if I get this game, this is it.
We should note Cyberpunk made bank even after their refunds.
Yeah.
It's the mindshare damage that is going to do them a disservice in the coming years. But at launch, they made a ton of money on that game.
And Cyberpunk is so interesting to me because I'm like the hype and the amount of people like obviously streaming that game when it came out, and then just all the news and the backlash, and then poof, like it just for me, it just disappeared from my timeline. No, everyone moved on after 3-4 weeks because we got all those apologies and yada yada. So anyways, it's just my point is that I would worry that on one hand, yeah, developers push a game out to Game Pass, but I think for the most part they are taking their time, rightfully so, and they should, and we see better quality games coming out that speak to everybody, right? And
Agreed.
Ultimately, we just want good games.
All right, guys, let's get to listener mail. We've got plenty of you writing in this past week, and I am so thankful to all of you. Remember, you can write in on Twitter at InsipidGhost. Just tweet me there in response to the show's announcement, or you can email me, insipidghost@gmail.com. Matt, we've got plenty to get through. Our first question comes from Mr. Famous Seamus himself, and he says, what was your favorite E3 reveal? Now, I'm going to give you a moment to think for sure, because I know that can be tough. It's hard for me, Seamus, to not think back to E3 2019, where Sean Capri and I got to be at E3. That is the best 3 days of my life. I know I've talked about that before. Seeing Sarah Bond on stage talking about Game Pass Ultimate as a service and what that was going to bring going forward was incredible. There were games announced in there for Game Pass that I was happy about. Metro Exodus stands out. I know that seems silly, but it was the moment and the feeling and the vibe of the room. And then to have Keanu Reeves come out on stage after the fact was just this euphoric moment. And so I hope you'll forgive the cheat, but it just felt amazing to be there in the room. It's something I'd never experienced before. I hope one day, I can be back on Xbox's radar to return to E3 in person. That was just it was a joy and a privilege to be there for that. So, Seamus, that's my answer for you. Matt, anything come to mind?
I think of bad things,
Oh
but I also think
no!
no, but I won't. I think of the, the one negative that always stands out on my mind is the original Xbox One reveal conference. Call of Duty, TV, TV,
TV,
TV,
TV, TV.
TV, TV,
Yeah.
TV, TV. Well, we're gonna Halo show TV, but no, the pieces that it's hard because there's not usually like one thing. Console releases or reveals are always wow. PS4 stood out to me as a memorable moment because of the reveal or the approach that Xbox took at the time, where it was TV, and PlayStation went the other way and focused so hard on gamers and made it easier for developers to develop on their platform. And it was just, here's what we're doing, and it was just bang, 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 bang. That conference really stood out to me as just, wow, I need a PlayStation 4. One of the titles that stands out to me as being very memorable is seeing like Uncharted 2. Because I adore that game. I don't know how many times I've beaten it over the years and replayed it. I just remember seeing, because Uncharted 1 was quieter. It wasn't the Uncharted games we know. But Uncharted 2 took it to a new level. And seeing Nathan Drake on that train and hanging down and climbing up and seeing it kind of just transition seamlessly into gameplay and you're moving around, it just blew my mind of how awesome that game looked. And yeah, just something like Uncharted really stands out to me. Same with The Last of Us. And yes, they're both Naughty Dog. But seeing The Last of Us 1 being revealed, what that game looked like, and same idea where it was graphically on another level, and how you were interacting with zombies and Ellie. And what I loved even I'm shifting a bit, but what I loved in the Last of Us trailer that stood out to me originally was I remember them being inside of like a hotel or in one of the rooms, and they crouched down behind like a couch together, and Ellie like ran off to go do something, and then Joel went the other way, and then they kind of worked together, and he smashed him in the head, one of the guards, with a bottle. It was just so cool. I was like, what is this game? It was doing so much in such a short amount of time. So there's always huge moments, but for me, those are the type of games that I love, that are really story driven. And yeah, I'd say probably Uncharted 2 and Last of Us 1.
That's awesome. It's funny because I think back, when this question is asked, I think of the Game Awards for the Series X reveal, because that was so powerful. But it's not E3, of course. But it always comes to my mind when I think of big moments. And I do chuckle at you recalling that terrible Xbox One showing, which I think they learned so much from. Like it was very painful for Xbox gamers, and it was that show that put me on PlayStation 4 to start that generation.
Yep.
But I really think we learned a lot from the age of memes and the fact that got spit out there, TV, and we've got a console for you. It's called Xbox 360, and those are powerful lessons learned for Xbox that really paved the way for everything that came last gen, which was great for Xbox. We got games with gold. We had 2 new hardware SKUs to correct the VCR issue. We got rid of Kinect. We had Game Pass, and then Game Pass Ultimate, and the acquisition of studios. All lessons learned where they could have bailed on Xbox and they didn't. So I'm appreciative of that for sure. Our next question comes from the Winter Gamer, whom we have activated, Matt. He asks us, when do you think Xbox will allow you to play your digital games on xCloud versus streaming directly from your consoles? Now, this is, for listeners that aren't aware, if you are a Game Pass Ultimate member and you can play games on xCloud, it's from a set catalog that is available in Game Pass. So your games that are not on Game Pass, you cannot stream on xCloud. You can only stream it directly from your box. Matt, any thoughts on when we might see games that are outside of that umbrella be streamable?
I don't know. I think it's going to be constantly evolving because they're going to constantly work on the platform for xCloud. I don't think that we're going to see ever just one, big shot where games are going to be, day and date and it's on xCloud. I just think it's going to be something they will chip away at for years to come, where it's just a couple of titles, more and more and more. They want to go in that direction to make sure that it is playable on everything. I don't know. Right now, I just see it as it's kind of at the beginning. It's at its infancy, and I do think that it's going to be something that is years of work to get. Not that it won't be successful and that more titles won't come to it. I think they will do that. I just don't think that, like Game Pass in itself, people feel like, well, let's just dump more titles on here, more and more and more. And I'm like, yeah, well, then it just becomes junk food and picking up your flavor of the day. I think with xCloud, they'll take their time and
Absolutely.
we'll get there, but it will be years because the technology changes too. And phones change, and
Right.
yeah, they just keep adapting and molding and seeing what works, what doesn't. And even what I would be interested to see is what are the stats on it as it becomes much more mainstream. How many players are grabbing their phones and playing using xCloud?
Right.
Maybe they don't see it as a huge success, or they do in different markets. What are your thoughts?
Very much agree with a lot of what you said. I think, Brendan, what will likely happen is the xCloud catalog will be incrementally increased as they are comfortable with it, but the technology is not ready for prime time. Everybody have a go all the time, right? They're consistently adding touch controls to a number of games.
Mhm.
They work, which is really cool. I did not think they would work, but there they are doing. You can play Gears. It's nuts. That said, having a curated list that they can control while they perfect the technology is a very wise thing. And Matt, to your point, like small updates is the way to go here. Take a look at Stadia and what they did right and what they did wrong.
Yep.
Their technology is great, really and truly it is, but it's just the service overall is very weak. xCloud has that built-in excuse of we're in beta, we're working things out, we're working with a curated list, we're trying to make things better, and it genuinely is great. To any listener that hasn't had a chance to try it, it really does work quite well. But there are things that they need to continue to refine, as it were. So I think it'll be a bit, Brendan. But I mean, by 2023, I think you got a good shot at being able to play just about anything.
And I think it's a supporting piece to Microsoft and Xbox overall
Mm-hmm.
push, right?
Yeah.
It's a supporting player, supporting cast member in it's all Game Pass. You can play it on xCloud. I don't think that they would be kind of center stage, taking up a huge amount of time, even down the road in a few years of like, here's what's available on xCloud. I think they will talk about it and cheer for it. I just think that it's another, to them, it's like, yeah, it's just another place to play. xCloud, play it on your phone, PC, your box at home, your smart TV, whatever if you got a controller, let's go. And I think that that's really what they're going to do, and they do it incrementally, small titles at a time.
Let's get to two more questions here before we bounce out. Skedaddle wrote in last week, and I wasn't able to get to his question. He says, will you be checking out MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries since it's on Game Pass? And do you think it's sad that Microsoft possibly cannot bring back Mech Assault and for fear of being sued? Skedaddle, I have downloaded MechWarrior 5. I have not yet played it. I am interested in the game for sure. I don't actually know the true details on Mech Assault. I know that is a game that they want to work on. I've heard rumblings that they want to work on it. Please don't take that to mean they are or anything like that. I am not an insider. That said, yeah, I've downloaded it. I do want to check it out. It's on my summer game list to play at some point. Matt, have you checked out MechWarrior? Any interest?
I'm the same as you. It's there. It's ready to go. I haven't touched it yet, so no.
Yeah, cool. The next comment comes from Mr. Dano. Now, Dan is the guy that I shouted out last week in kind words, and then he had the audacity to go and just wreck me in Halo 5. It's absolutely cruel, Dan. So you are not forgiven. He writes in not with a question, but with a thought, and I am ready to pick it apart. He says, I want an X-Men game,
I saw
and not
this.
just a Wolverine one, although that last one was fun. The real question is, would you like it modeled after the animation series or more modern? If it ever exists, I just hope it's not one of those, you're a new mutant who joins them. If you saw this one, I'll let you go first, Matt. Take it away.
So I think, Dan, you're going to get this X-Men game. Maybe not the exact one that we all want, because let's be honest, I want animated series, 1990s X-Men in a game, and I want to play as all of them. You'll say Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Matt. You can do whatever you want. True, but I just want a tried and true X-Men game. I don't know if we are going to get there, but we do have the positive is for E3, we have a lot of Marvel games being announced and coming, whether it be on mobile or it's going to be, on console or both. We have Guardians. We have some mobile games that are out there as well, but I know what you mean. I kind of want my X-Men Legends almost. But would they ever do something where it's going to be an X-Men? Sure. Maybe it'd be in development. However, like we have the XCOM Marvel game that is leaked out, right? That to me could be, Dan, almost your closest thing. Depends on what they try to do with it. I actually did an episode on this last week where I was talking about the Marvel and XCOM and what it could mean. And to me, I'm like, well, it's a perfect opportunity to, bring out X-Men. If you're looking, Dan, for that 90s style, animated style, well, we could get that, but just in terms of skins. And like you do with Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And be able to swap out your costumes. I think they would want more of that. That XCOM one does have me interested because I think X-Men and the universe within the X-Men fits very well with that because you can expand into a lot of characters. I'd also like to see it for Fantastic Four and go down that path. I don't know if we're ever really going to get that tried and true, 90s animated series X-Men because I think it also puts them in a bit of a box. Not that it would be a bad thing, because the title could be amazing, but I think they always want to see if they can bring out new characters, added content, and expand.
I think you're hitting a lot of nails on the head there. Ultimate Alliance 3 is a great showcase for that 90s X-Men vibe. For sure. There's a lot of X-Men plot lines in there. A lot of the X-Men are available to you. They had expansions. There's a lot of X-Men love. And Fantastic Four, actually, is shown up there pretty well. The caveat being, right now X-Men are not ready for prime time. They feel dated and they don't feel relevant. But I remind everybody that prior to the MCU, the Avengers were pretty obscure. Iron Man was a B-class hero. Hulk was even worse. Nobody cared about Black Widow or Hawkeye, and Captain America was kind of silly, right? It will, times change and there's an ebb and flow, and I think X-Men will find their way back over the next 5 to 10 years for sure. I think the MCU's incorporation with them and the Inhumans is on its way. I genuinely think the X-Men would be great gameplay options for the Avengers game, but I feel like we brought that up too much. There's a lot of ways they could go there. And as far as aesthetic, I tend to prefer the more realistic versions because we have games like Ultimate Alliance 3. X-Men Legends is the precursor to the Ultimate Alliance games, to say the least. Now, in time, Dano, you're going to get that game that you want in time. And I agree with you. I'm tired of the Wolverine saturation. It's all 3 X-Men movies were about Wolverine. It's like, come on, get out of there.
And then his own, all of them.
Yep.
And I am with you. Like, I don't think that they can center around one character, and I think they need MCU because Marvel is looking to work with more studios, which is great, to expand and say, let's put Marvel properties properly on and get all these developers to try and develop X Marvel game. And I think that we can get away from the idea of a Marvel's Avengers like it's going to be like this. That's just Square's approach. There's so many other studios that can take a crack at a different team and do a Fantastic Four game or an X-Men game. But I think that they would be looking to see when the MCU on the film side starts really going into that, where it's kind of we know that we're going to get an X-Men movie, because then it's just Prince money all the time. Right now, I think if you release an X-Men game next year, I think fans will be like, hey, this is cool, but whatever. It doesn't have any tie into anything. I think that if you had MCU side going, we are now moving on and we are expanding into the X-Men universe, then fans are going to be clamoring for a game.
Very much. Agreed. Todd Oxtra, I know you wrote in with a Unreal 5 and AMD question. I just don't know enough about it to truly answer it, so forgive me for now. That is going to be it for our show. Matt, you have been incredible. Thank you so much for joining me. It was an honor and a pleasure, my friend. Would you once again remind people where they can find your content?
Well, thank you for having me, because this is awesome. I love the show, and I'm just glad we were able to do this together. youtube.com/assemble show. Nerdy content on there every week, covering things from Marvel's Avengers, WWE games, Xbox, all the latest stuff for E3. Got some Marvel and DC news in there for the movie side too. So if that's your thing, head over there, youtube.com/assemble show. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up if you enjoy the shows too. But love to grow the community and talk to you guys.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost. You can always email me, insipidghost@gmail.com. Follow me on any and all of your podcast services. Leave a rating if that applies. And of course, youtube.com/Xbox Expansion Pass. Have a wonderful